Assalamualaikum everyone! Today we're going to explore one of the most important concepts in pragmatics and communication study, the cooperative principle, introduced by philosopher Paul Grace in 1975. This principle helps us understand how people engage in effective communication. When we have a conversation, we don't just throw words at each other randomly. We follow social norms and unspoken rules to make sure we're being understood. Grace called this shared understanding the cooperative principle. He defined it as follows: makes your contribution such as required at the stage at which it occurs by the accept, purpose, or direction of the talk exchange in which you are engaged. In short, this means when we talk, we should make our contribution appropriately at the right time and in line with the direction of the conversation. To help explain how we do this, Grace proposed 4 contributional maxims or rules that we tend to follow in everyday conversation. These maxims are maxim of quantity, maxim of quality, maxim of relation, and maxim of manner. Maxim of quantity: give the right amount of information. The first maxim is the maxim of quantity, which tells us to provide just the right amount of information, not too little and not too much. If you don't give enough information, the listener may feel confused or misled. If you give too much, it can overwhelm or distract from the point. For example, if someone asks, "How was your weekend?" a proper answer will be, "It was nice, I went to the beach." But if you said, "It was okay, I left home at 6 a.m., got on a bus number 47, forgot my sunscreen, talked to 7 strangers, and bought a coconut for 300 rupiah, you're giving too much information, and that violates the maxim of quantity. Next is maxim of quality: be truthful. The maxim of quality focuses on honesty. According to this maxim, you should not say what you believe to be false or make claims you don't have evidence for. This is essential for building trust in communication. For example, if someone says, "I can fly without wings," that's clearly a violation of the maxim of quality, because the speaker is saying something they know isn't true. In some cases, people may flout this maxim, not to devise, but to be ironic or sarcastic. For instance, saying, "Oh, I just love getting stuck in traffic for 3 hours." The speaker is obviously being sarcastic. They're flouting the maxim to create a certain effect, and the listener understands the true meaning from the tone or context. Next is maxim of relation: be relevant. The maxim of relation, also called the maxim of relevance, means that your contribution should be relevant to the topic at hand. Staying on topic keeps the conversation smooth and logical. For example, if someone asks, "Did you take out the trash?" and you answer, "It's raining outside," your answer is not directly relevant, unless taking out the trash is somehow connected to the weather. People often float this maxim when they're trying to change the subject, avoid a question, or express something indirectly. This is especially common in politeness, strategies, or humorous exchange. And the last is maxim of manner: be clear. The last maxim is the maxim of manner, which is about clarity and organization. Grace said we should avoid being vague or ambiguous, and instead be brief, orderly, and clear in our speech. For example, instead of saying the individual in question expired, just say he died. The first version is unnecessarily complex and may confuse the listener. Again, people may float this maxim for effect, for example, using poetic language and metaphors. Implicature: when maxims are floated. So, what happens when one of these maxims is broken or floated? Well, according to Grace, that's when implicature occurs, when a speaker implies something without stating it directly and the listener pick up on it. Two types of implicature. The first one is generalized implicature. These are implied meanings that are generally understood in normal usage. For example, some students pass the test. We assume that not all students pass. The second one is particularized implicature. This depends on context. For example, do you want to go out tonight? I have to study for exam. Here, the listener understands that the real meaning is no, even though it wasn't stated outright. There is also something called confessional implicature, which is tied to specific words like but or yet. For example, she is poor but happy. The word but implies a contrast, even though the sentence itself is true. Understanding this principle helps us not only become more effective communicators, but also better interpreters of language, meaning, and human behavior. Maybe that's all for me. Thank you for watching. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.